DELL XPS 13. For the third year in a row, the DELL XPS 13 is still our absolute favorite laptop. Seeing as it still looks the same as it did in years prior, you may be wondering what's different about the 2017 version of the DELL XPS 13, the company's flagship ultrabook that we've still yet to fall out of love with all these years later. Above all else, this update focuses on boosting specs. So while you'll notice marginal changes made to the outside of the device, the inside now consists of Intel's 8th generation Kaby Lake Refresh series processors, if you can afford them, for double the cores of the previous generation of DELL XPS 13. As we anticipated, the cost of the DELL XPS 13 hasn't changed. The starting configuration retails at $799 in the US, and it doesn't appear to be any different than last year. You're still getting a 7th generation Intel Core i3-7100U, 4GB of RAM and a 128GB solid-state drive, SSD, and a Full HD Infinity Edge screen. The only models whose specs have changed are those that are higher tier. Because Intel's 8th generation processors for laptops only exist in a luxuriously high-speed vacuum, you can max out your DELL XPS 13 with an Intel Core i7-8550U. 16GB of RAM and 256GB of SSD storage for $1,749. The configuration we've tested here costs $1,299, £1,268.99 or $2,299 In the UK, however, prices begin at £1,118.99 with a whopping 11 different configurations, starting with a 7th generation Core i7 processor behind an FHD display as well as 8GB of RAM and a 256GB SSD. The top end sees the XPS 13 with a QHD Plus touchscreen backed by an 8th generation Intel Core i7 processor as well as 16GB of RAM and a 1TB SSD for a cool £1,818.98. In the UK, you can also get several configurations preloaded with Ubuntu Linux instead of Windows 10. If you liked the look and feel of last year's DELL XPS 13, then you're in luck. If not, then this year's rendition will do nothing to sway you. This is because absolutely nothing about the laptop's dimensions, weight or frame design has changed. The DELL XPS 13 is no thinner or lighter than before, at 2.9 pounds, 1.29 kilograms, for the glossy, QHD Plus touchscreen model or 2.7 pounds, 1.2 kilograms, for the matte, FHD screen version and at 0.6 inches, 15 millimeters, thick in either configuration. This time around, we've had the opportunity to test the FHD, or 1920 by 1080 resolution, version of the DELL XPS 13 Infinity Edge display. While QHD Plus is a pleasure to work with, we find the FHD option to be just fine for what most folks will use the laptop for. Color reproduction is still spot on, and the matte coating versus the necessary glass for the QHD Plus touchscreen actually works in its favor when under direct light, managing glare much more easily. Plus, the 400 nits worth of brightness works well to that end, too. Video still looks excellent on the laptop, but as for the sound, we'd appreciate an upgrade at this point.